You are listening to the BU Podcast with Michael Arrington. We discuss social justice, childhood trauma, current events, hip-hop, and so much more. Now, here's your host, Michael Arrington.
Yo, what's good? We're back, BU Podcast. Your man, Mike Arrington, in the place to be with another episode. Today's guest is my man, Trek Life. He and I go way back, man. We from the LA underground scene of the mid to late 90s. We had a chance to kind of see some of like LA's greatest talent, a burgeoning underground scene develop. Lucky enough to be a part of it. Lucky enough to be a part of this thing called LA History. So we're going to take you down memory lane with that. Get into some of that. Get into some social media follies and things of that nature, man. But today, what I wanted to kind of speak about in regards to that is something that I hardly ever really speak on. I'm kind of humble to a fault, is what I've been told, is that I never really speak on any kind of accolades that I've had musically. I really don't know why. I don't know why I don't really speak on it much. But I am a part of this LA underground history. I was a part of a group called the Western Hemisphere that's a part of LA underground history. Some of my work has been featured in a couple of documentaries and whatnot. And I feel like it's important to let people know kind of what I've been able to accomplish without it being like a humble brag. Like I said, I struggle with this. People who have, who've been listening to the BU Podcast have always mentioned that I should mention some of, the things that I've accomplished in this music. And I do from time to time when I feel like it's warranted. But, so yeah, just to give you kind of the long and short of my history, man. So I started rhyming probably in high school. I didn't take it serious until about late 93, early 94. And I was able to, be friends with people who were kind of already making their name on the scene. These people being Ras Kass, Voodoo, Mean Green, Bird. These are, Ras Kass and Bird and I are from the same neighborhood. Bird I knew from, t-ball and basketball, just playing, in the neighborhood. Raz I knew of. He was a lot older than I was. I knew of him because he was such a good dancer back in the days. And so it wasn't until I think I met him on the campus of El Camino College that we spoke. And, I kind of rolled around with him. He introduced me to Voodoo. He introduced me to Mean Green while he was searching for his deal. He had an independent deal with a label called Patchwork, which was created by another mutual friend of ours named Bob Whitfield and Curtis Daniel from our neighborhood. And so I had a kind of a front row seat at what it looked like for independent artists in the early to mid 90s, man, where going to record labels, man, playing demos and just meeting and greeting. And, some of those people turned out to be a who's who of the music business now. But I was just a young kid, man, 19 at the time. I was low key the chauffeur, taking them to these different meetings and going to these different record shops and meeting these different producers and sitting in studio sessions and photo shoots and video shoots and merch merch meetings and all this type of stuff, man, passing out flyers and posters and stickers and so on and so forth. So I had a front row seat of grassroots record label stuff. And then these dudes at the time were juggernauts, man. They were the who's who of LA underground around the time I started. And I was associated with them, even though I had my own crew in the beginning. And then once Ras Kass left the Western Hemisphere, I kind of had a chance to kind of fill a slot, so to speak. But it was more by proxy than it was like intentional. It was like I was always with them. I was kind of making my own name. And my name just became synonymous with the Western Hemisphere thing. It didn't really become official till about the time I think Mean Green did his record. But up until that point, man, I was kind of, in the group by proxy. I had my own group, like I said before, group of MCs that were coming up that came up with me. And we're just trying to do it, man. Hit the wake up show on 92.3 The Beat and later 100.3 The Beat. And, getting the freestyle in front of millions of people every Saturday. I became, a sort of a household name in the mid to late 90s, man. And then I tried to get a record deal, didn't work out too well. Then I ended up getting an independent deal. And then, it's been a long time coming, second coming, and the rest to follow that. In that, though, I was probably one of the first underground artists to really get music on TV shows, doing music licenses. I kind of fell into that by proxy. I got a couple of Super Bowl commercials, man. I've been able to be in a couple of motion pictures, soundtracks, and scores and whatnot, man. And, I say all that not to really brag, but just kind of give you some of the things that I've been able to do, man. I had music on the Oprah Winfrey Show. I've had music on Keeping the Kardashians and Flavor of Love and all kind of VH1 shows, all kind of MTV shows. I had music on Scandal and CSI Miami, CSI Vegas, Law and Order once. I've been able to, have this kind of unknown career, but I kind of, my music is in a lot of different places that people wouldn't imagine. And so when you hear me talk about music and the music business on my show, here's why. Like, I've been in the business, almost 30 years, 14 albums to my credit, a couple world tours under my belt, debuted on Billboard. I've been able to have a pretty sustaining career. So I kind of got a certain level of expertise especially when it comes to do it yourself kind of music and entrepreneurship. So me and Trek kind of get into that a little bit. We're going to talk about the music business and hip hop fans and all that type of stuff, and social media and critics versus fanatics and things of that nature, man. But wanted to kind of share that, kind of let you know what my musical background is for those who don't know, and holla at us, man. If you got anything you want me to talk about, you can always email us, hit us on, social media and so on and so forth, man. I'm here. But we're going to get into my man Trek Life, BU Podcast, Mike Arrington. Easy.
You are listening to the BU Podcast with Michael Arrington.
So what's good? We're back to BU Podcast, man. Your man Mike Arrington. Yo, I got my man. We go way, way, way back, man. My man Trek Life. Man, I can't even remember when I met you, bro. It had to be at least 20 years ago.
At least 20 years ago. Yeah, I mean, we was. This is before, really before I started putting out any records. Which is over 20 years ago. Yeah.
94, 95, I'd say.
Yeah. This is right after high school type. Yeah. When everybody started exploring the world around them. You know what I'm saying?
For sure, man. So let the people know, man, who you are and what you do and where you from.
What up, world? My name is Trek Life. I am MC extraordinary. I'm from the 626 area. At least I grew up half out here, half out there, half in South Central Los Angeles. Man, MC, father, black man, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
The list goes on, a basketball savant, if you will, or at least antagonist.
We'll definitely get into that. For sure. So man, so tell me, man, like I ask this of everybody that I have on my show, man. So when did you fall in love with hip hop?
Oh man. So this is the ill part, because my brother and my sister were really like my introduction into hip hop. This is back, let's say I was about 9 years old. So let's say 82, 83. KDAY was pumping. My brother was into UTFO and he was rhyming on the that little hotline that you used to call into.
Right.
So that Rhyme Syndicate had put out. So I was just trying to be like my brother, man. Like young kid with an older brother. This is like early 80s to mid 80s, and my brother's 11 years older than me. So he went on to college, you know what I'm saying? So my main connection to my brother was like just rhyming, and every record he was into, I was into. So when NWA came up and Ice Cube came up, like I was into that, you know what I'm saying? And eventually just sort of branched off into, into my own listening, you know what I'm saying? Kind of growing up, you know, Rap City and MTV Raps, all that type of stuff. But the origin of it all was really the early KDAY days and in the early 80s, my brother, you know what I'm saying?
For sure, man. Like the 80s was a very, very dope era. You about the same age, man. So I fell in love with it from the minute I heard, Rapper's Delight. But like, I think I really started getting really heavy into it around the time I heard Grandmaster Flash Fury 5, The Message.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
He was so descriptive in the things he was saying. Like I think that might have been the first time I heard a rap song where I can really see what he was saying.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So that's what got me into it, man. And I was heavily influenced. I always been a lyric guy. Even the R&B stuff I grew up with, Isaac Hayes and Donny Hathaways, those guys was, lyrical. So that's what drew me into hip hop, man. So let me ask you this, man, coming from the LA scene or whatever, man, give me your point of view of what that early 90s, mid 90s LA hip hop scene looked like.
Is beautiful a perfect description?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure your listeners are all familiar with that era, but I'm going to speak as though they're unfamiliar. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So the image at the time of every artist in hip hop was very much regional, right? A West Coast artist looked like NWA. An East Coast artist had a specific look. Ghetto Boys and any Southern artist had a very specific look.
For sure.
So that I'll use The Good Life. That's kind of my pinpoint, right? That was around the time that I started to notice, like, wait a minute. These people look like me. You know what I mean? Right. Like these are not necessarily. There's nothing against gangster rappers or anybody who was living the life spitting that, but I wasn't. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So finding a space started with The Good Life for me. Now I didn't jump on a mic at The Good Life. That's something that has been said in interviews that I've never expressed that to anybody, but they would write it. Like I was there. I was a fan of it. And I think the imagery changed. Like the image of a West Coast artist changed, right? You saw Souls of Mischief in 93, The Far Side, Freestyle Fellowship, the rise of Good Life, and then the rise of Project Blow. The first of all, the look changed, but more importantly than the look, though, is just the run, the styles, right? Like this was a birth of Jurassic 5 in their style, and of course Freestyle Fellowship in their style, 2000 Crows in their style coming up, and you wouldn't jump in a cypher at that time if you weren't confident that you were unique on the West Coast. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that experiencing other ciphers at the time in the South and in the East at around the same age, right? Unique wasn't, I'm not dissing nobody else, but unique wasn't as far stretched as on the West Coast. Like you understand what I'm saying? Like it was just like, you couldn't be average.
No,
people would just, you may or may not get battled. It wasn't like that entirely every time, but you could go to Delamo Mall, catch a freestyle. People was rhyming. You could go to West Covina Mall. Yeah, like you in front of Tower Records, any Tower Records in the city, you could go to the record store, catch a cypher. You want
let me see you on a bus stop. Yeah. Let me see you on a bus stop looking like you freestyling. I'm gonna come at you.
Dude, almost anybody with a backpack on was like, yo, wait, what's up?
What's going on? You know
yeah. So I mean, it was everywhere. Like and that was also the crazy thing that I've only ever seen in one other place in my life. And that's what we're talking about, man. Like, everywhere.
Right.
People were rhyming everywhere. It was the MC version of what breakdancing was in like 85, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever, 80s when people were putting, when they were putting cardboard out and you look around and like, yo, what are y'all doing right now? Like,
right.
We was riding bikes and now all of a sudden everybody's spinning on their back. Well, that was the early 90s for rhyming. You just, like you said, at the bus stop or anywhere. So, yeah, it was a time of, I know I'm being long-winded here, but it was a time of, like, you don't get times where creativity is just in the streets all the time, everywhere you look, and people are doing it. You know what I'm saying? If you were a painter, just imagine looking around every single day, no matter where you went, and people were just painting.
Right. Yeah, I liken it to, I liken that era to like the Harlem Renaissance. but there was so many burgeoning artists coming out at that time, and crews, you know, from not even just rhyming. Like it was like you had dancers, like you had, you know, the Soul Brothers and, you know, those dudes or whatever, you know, Def Jeff's folks and you know, Divine Stylist peoples. Like you had all these different people that was this creative, and they had these collectives, right? And so you had the dance scene, and you had the graffiti scene, and then you had the MC scene, and it was burgeoning. And like I didn't even start rapping until 93. You know what I'm saying? I was just a fan of just the whole thing. Now I used to DJ, but I wasn't somebody that was on the battle scene doing all that. I was just doing parties and noon dances at middle schools, bro. So you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but the scene was so rich of just so much talent. And you mentioned a few names, the Dilated Peoples and Jurassic Fives and Freestyle Fellowships and 2000 Crows and Born Allah. You had all these different people kind of coming out at the same time. And it was like Halley's Comet, man. And you throw in the Wake Up Show and Friday Night Flavors and the Joint, and you had all these different spots, right? And the college radio was popping. So you had KUCR and KUCI and Riverside and San Bernardino. Yeah. So you had all these different spots. So it was such a movement. And even watching the where we're from, the DJ Bonds and Breeze documentary that I was a part of, shout out to them. They didn't get to capture like most of that because they came a little bit later, right. In the scene. But what people don't understand about LA, those of us that are old enough, remember like LA was real, like in the 80s, bro, it was real new wave, you know, electro funk. Yes. You know what I'm saying? You was at the beach, you was at Venice Beach, or you was at, you know, the beaches in the beach cities, and you was, you know, everybody had a boom box in the car. Everybody was trying to be like breaking. You know what I'm saying? And it went from that to Freestyle Fellowship, Good Life, Project Blowed, you know, Water the Bush and Joshua's and all these different spots, man. And it was just like, it was such a rich time. And I wish that some of that stuff was really, really chronicled. You know what I'm saying? It was just a moment in time, man. And so we were fortunate enough to come up in that era, man. That's why I wanted to holler at you and see your perspective, man, because you one of the few people that I had on that's old enough to remember some of those things and kind of went through it with me.
Yeah. It was I mean, to add on to what you're saying, like you mentioned just the style change, like the imagery change again, like Venice Beach, just kind of switching to an MC's image. Right. Like automatically everyone started looking like an MC. Right. Whatever that description was, wherever you got that description from, the style of dress. If you went to Westchester High School, where, you know, all of us from LA, wherever part of LA you from, Westchester, you know, kind of means something to you. Right. Anyway, sure. Like when you were in high school, that's where the girls was at. So
that's where the girls was at. And that's what we had to beat in basketball.
Right, exactly. So, but just that imagery, right? I think the crew, another level. I think a lot of them, they came from the Westchester area, but their whole imagery and style was just how people were looking. You know what I mean? Right. And that, to me, that's crazy just to think about it that way. Because I remember, I'm also old enough to remember when rappers wasn't cool.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. And then all of a sudden, I look around, man, and I'm like, man, I went through all this, and now y'all get to be cool. What about me? You know what I'm saying? So exactly. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful time.
That stuff they used to call cornball, everybody doing now.
Yeah. And I want to mention that, I mean, with you on here, we also definitely should mention like Western Hemisphere and the regional aspect of things, right? Because again, initially everything was kind of centered around Los Angeles, especially as you went nationwide, right? You was either, if you met somebody from out of town, you was, yo, you from Compton? It's like, nah, I'm not from Compton. Oh, you from
LA.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody from LA County is from LA.
Exactly. But people started coming up in Carson. People started coming up in West Covina, in Riverside, in, you know, various. I mean, it was MCs from Yorba Belinda that was spitting. Like, he was like, wait.
Right. Okay. Rolling Heights and Cerritos, right?
Yeah.
I believe Rep Matic and them is from Cerritos.
Yeah, Cerritos area. DJs from Cerritos and Carson area. And that's something I think when the West Coast is discussed, particularly Carson and Cerritos and Long Beach, are not given enough of that credit in the discussion. You know what I'm saying? Carson, Cerritos, Long Beach, Pasadena. These are like incubator cities for talent. You know what I'm saying?
Pasadena used to have the illest college radio show with Mike Nardone.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yes.
So, you know, and that was like his spot was the spot you battled at after the show was over.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I remember where it was like, I think Freestyle Fellowship was there and Voodoo Mean Green Razzcast was there. And it was like, you know, it was a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like you get your swords out because it was a thing.
Yeah. And
you know what I'm saying?
I think that era is not credited, or not that era, but there are individuals that are not discussed strongly enough, particularly, you know, of course, Western Hemisphere. But as I mentioned 2000 Crows earlier, like CBE, like these are
right.
like
CBE,
kind of game changing. Yeah. These were game changers.
Yeah, they were doing funky dialect. You know all them groups that was really kind of, you know, groundbreaking and innovative and just styles and just different styles, man. So since we kind of segue right perfectly to, I noticed, man, you know, I follow you on Facebook, man, and your posts be hilarious, man. A lot of the times, man, I be wholeheartedly agreeing with a lot of your viewpoints on different things, man. But I wanted to talk to you about hip hop fans in particular, right? Okay. There's a lot of like hip hop fans that might be the most fickle fan base of any genre of anything entertainment and I've ever seen, bro. I've never seen some people so cynical, so fickle, but lazy at the same time. And I don't really mean that disrespectfully, but then I kind of do.
No, it deserves some disrespect.
Yeah, just because like you can never please them.
No,
they're never happy.
No, I think hip hop fans, for me, have lost a couple things. One, they've just lost the understanding that this is expression. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, first of all, this is art. Before it's commerce, before it's anything, as far as I'm talking very particularly about emceeing. Of course, DJing, you know, b-boying and graph writing are all art as well. But my particular craft is emceeing. And I think a lot of people get lost in the commerce of emceeing and forget that it's art. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I'm talking on one side or the other. That's for people who are just automatically against a person once they become successful, right? Or people who are automatically for a person only because they're successful. Both of them have forgotten that this is art. You know what I mean? And we could discuss how, right? Labels and ultimately the commercializing of it. But the fans, man, you never have to. This is my thing, yo. you never have to buy into any of that,
right?
You know what I mean? Especially when you our age, and those are the fans I'm normally talking to.
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Exactly what you're talking about,
bro. You old enough to know better. Like why are you playing this game? Like you old enough. You too old, bro. You know what I'm saying? So
you know better.
You know better.
I know you know better.
You know what I'm saying? Your uncles done told you way too damn old for this, right? So yeah, so you get your you know, see, man, you're gonna have me being cold-blooded on here. You have your dudes who couldn't really get shine in their time, like at all. You know what I mean? And now they're critical or more critical than others. You have your people who are really believe that they're critics, but they're really more snobs than they are critics. You know what I'm saying? And they believe that they're like the gatekeepers of the art. And it's like, but you can't gatekeep art. It's not possible. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not possible. You could dislike art. Like you could dislike what an MC does or what anybody does, right? But that doesn't automatically, and this was where I think our era kind of made this mistake, was like, if you don't like it, it's not hip hop.
Right.
It's like, nah, that's not how this works.
That's not how this works at all.
You don't like it.
You don't like it.
Yeah,
you don't like it.
It's still hip hop.
Like
you just don't like
it. For years, I wasn't a fan. I still can't say that I'm a fan. But I didn't like Lil Wayne. Right. But I didn't denounce it as garbage. I didn't listen to it, so I didn't put any energy into it. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't post anything about, like everybody is mad at Drake because he made a house record, right? And I'm like, I was mad at Drake because I just want to hear you rhyme more. But other than that, you know what I'm saying? Like you do you. I don't turn it on. I just go listen to what I want to listen to.
Something else. Yeah.
Turn it on to something else. But I think I had an argument with a guy. I'm not gonna name his name because I don't want any disrespect, but he was a fan of mine in my early career. And then as my career, went on, he was like, "Oh, you changed. Your style is more commercial now." And like, which I always found hilarious because I've never been commercial. You know what I'm saying? Right. I may make a song that may not be particularly sounding of an underground sound, whatever that is. But right. I had to tell him, I said, dude, I am an MC. And so at the barest essence of who I am and what I do in this craft is move the crowd. And this particular beat that I chose, it moved the crowd. Whether you like it or not is really your problem, not mine. You know what I'm saying? And so he got real offended at that take. But I was just like, I said, no, you can have it any way you want, but you can't dictate to me what hip hop expression that I manifest.
Right.
Either you like it or you don't. You know what I'm saying? But that's you don't have to. I don't never feel that. I feel like hip hop fans have the audacity to feel like they have to critique everything that comes out.
Or control it.
If you don't like it, you don't like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like a lot of records that come out, but I ain't got nothing to say about it. I just don't listen to it. The audacity
and the arrogance.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of the only art forms that I know of where the fans are either equally or more arrogant than the artist.
Right.
It's like, how are you? You know what I'm saying? Like, not that artists should be arrogant, but it's always the other way around, right? Like,
right.
So the other times you meet fans is way more snobby than the dudes backstage, and they're like, "Oh, y'all think y'all cool because y'all backstage," and I'm like, "Dude, it's way more chill back there than it is out here a lot of times." You know what I'm saying? So. But I'll tell you one thing I've never said before, but speaking of the mainstream thing, that was my biggest mistake as an artist, right? Like Everything Changed Nothing record produced by Odyssey, his production and everything was excellent. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But at the time I was looking at Talib Kweli, right? How he could just skate that line so well of being able to be like, oh, that joint made the radio.
Right.
But still, right. So I'm like, with the Everything Changed Nothing record, I tried, you know what I mean? Right. And that's why I feel like, some people may like the record, some people may not, but I feel like my performance on that record was lacking something because it was there was some songs that there was a complete and total effort to get that crossover without crossover sound.
I get you.
But, so now when I make records, I'm much more cognizant of just being natural, being in the moment and being just concerned with what I have, what I feel and what I have to say, right? I think the audience doesn't understand or removes, and this is not just in hip hop, but they remove the humanity from the individual, right? Like you as a person can't see and feel. You're trying to succeed in an industry that is doing its best to mute your voice and your sound. Right. Me and you know this very much so because there was a time when our sound or the sound that we loved was actually on the radio.
Right.
93 Till was on the radio. Electric Relaxation was on the radio. Passing Me By was on it. These are hit songs that was on the radio. Miss Fat Booty was on the radio, right?
On the radio.
Yeah. So you were in the studio making songs that also could be projected to a larger audience than just, a 200 capacity room, right?
Right.
And I think that the audience, the fans don't really understand the humanity in that moment.
Right.
They're like, yo, right. I'm talking 88. I'm talking early before 88. Like rappers had gold chains and Mercedes. You know what I mean? Like, the 90s was fresh and we had that switch in imagery, man. But shoot, I came up with folks had Dookie ropes and gold chains and they was making bread. Like now I'm looking at it like, nah, man, you got to keep it underground and be homeless. It's like,
right. Yeah.
That's the answer. You know what I mean?
I always felt like Hammer got a bad break because he was the pioneer of where we at now. You know what I'm saying? But he was dissed for it because he was first. You know what I'm saying? But everybody would love to get a British Knight sneaker deal right now or a Pepsi deal right now. You know what I'm saying? And go on tour and sell out stadiums, right? And so for me, once I started to learn the record business, I kind of understood what it was about. What I got caught up in early in my career was trying to be something that I was not. And I struggled with it. And so, but when I had record deals or when I was affiliated with labels, I learned really quick that that's not who I am, but I'm an artist. So I can play your game. I just won't play that game under my name. So I'll
Right.
ghostwrite for you forever, or you need me to write for, MC Bubblicious Fish Eyes. I got you. You know what I'm saying? But but I can't personally use it for me. But if you want me to write a song like that, and that's how I kind of got into the TV game. It was like, oh, I can make something. I can make a song sound like 50 Cent. I'm just not 50 Cent. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm a lot cheaper than he was. So the people were like, oh, bet, let's do that. You know what I'm saying? Or people were like, oh, like people don't know there's a lot of money in doing hip hop covers.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like stores like Party City, they'll pay you cash money to do Too Legit to Quit because they don't want to pay Hammer.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I had to take a couple of them gigs because money was funny. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, but what I learned is that as a mature MC now, more mature, I kind of understand like that was a good business move. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, but when I was younger, 20, I'd have been like, man, that was a sucker move. Right.
Yeah.
Because of the commerce of it.
Sure. And that's the humanity, right?
Right.
Like that's the humanity in a time where we're transitioning from teenagers to young adults to young men who have responsibilities. You know what I'm saying? And that transition can be seen and felt in your music and your decision making around your music.
Exactly.
And especially when the seeds show up. When the kid
sure.
shows up, it's like, yo,
let me slow this down, son.
Exactly. It's like, wait, did you say $50 in drink tickets for this show? Nah.
Yeah, nah, I can't.
It needs to.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I can't.
No,
I can't even show up for that.
Right.
So, in the audience thinks that a lot of the audience, a lot of the fans think that an artist is whack for that, and I'm like, but see, come on, man, like, yo, it's you again wanting to control the personality, the heart and soul of an individual. This is a person. This isn't just your favorite rapper. This is an actual person who's going to make decisions based on the resources accessible to them at the time. Right.
For sure.
You would mention going into television, like doing a McDonald's commercial right after the next episode battle or whatever. Like my initial thing was like a McDonald's commercial, man. Like, huh? For the rap for McDonald's, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then I got in there and was like, I probably want to do more of these. Actually, this is funding my ability to be able to be
a real
free.
check.
Yeah, right. It's a real check.
It's like a real check, right? And then like so you and it's not until those moments where you're like, oh, bro, this is way easier than the other shit I've been trying to do.
Oh, gosh, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like I've been trying too hard to live up to an aesthetic that don't even really exist. When you really break it down to its bare essence. I posted something on Instagram a couple months ago. Is a picture of me at the Hip Hop Camp festival. It's like 30,000 people. I'm in the crowd, right? And so what my post was, though, the text in the post was, everybody sees this and would love to have it. What they didn't see was that 17-hour flight that I was running late for, that I was stressed out that I wasn't going to make my connecting flight for, that when I got there, they lost my luggage and all my merch was lost. So I'm only there for 3 days. Man. I didn't get my merch until the day I was leaving. So I missed out on 10 grand of merch being sold. Right. And it was my son's birthday and we postponed the party until I got back. You know what I'm saying? And the stress of that and the stress of my wife having to watch 2 little kids under 2. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't know that part of it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But that's what took that energy to be on stage that day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so people was like, damn, we never really looked at it like that. I'm like, yeah, you have no idea what it takes to put on a tour as an independent artist. This shit ain't easy. This shit's work.
It's not.
You know what I'm saying?
The next show after that, or the next 2 shows after that, is 7 people there.
Right.
If you want a tour.
Right.
So people, I mean, because we present that, to be fair, people see the shows where everybody's in the crowd. But
right.
We angle them pictures a little differently when it's only 8 of them there. And trust me, on those tours, there's shows where it's 8 people in that joint. You know what I'm saying? And it's an ego hit because across the street, like
right.
We was on tour in Seattle. We went up to Seattle and oh man, what's homeboy's name, man? Calling out to our area crew, homie from the Bay Area.
Oh, I know who you mean.
So whack that I can't remember homie name. Please forgive me, bro. I for all people, please forgive me, man. It's not coming to me right now, but he had a show across the way the night before ours. Man, it's packed.
Right.
We hyped like, oh, we gonna kill it tomorrow. Man, we had like 7.
Right.
8.
Right.
And it was an ego hit. Like, oh no. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get into who he was rocking with because, you know what I'm saying, who was the headliner or whatever, but he was more affected than all of us. He's the headliner and his name had more weight, but people don't see that, yo. People don't see that. And I know I'm saying the word ego hit, and I know there might be some pushback to ego, but that's part of being an MC, yo. The ego is so like,
that's it. That's it.
That's what it is. You know what I mean? So
like the E and MC is for ego.
It gotta be.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's a blow. And I remember those, you know, people don't understand that part of it, right? Or like just like somebody hit me up recently, like, yeah, we want you to be on my album. And I was like, I'm not in that headspace right now to even create what it is I know you want. I know you want something from Michael Myers, and I'm just not in that headspace right now. You know what I'm saying? So respectfully, I'm gonna have to decline, man. He was like, oh, you think I can use an acapella you had from like 2000? I was like, nah, absolutely not. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can't find it on YouTube, you can't get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I mean, I'm just not there. I'm not gonna give you some throwaway just so you can use my name. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how this works for me. You know what I'm saying? And people used to be mad at me for years that I would turn people down. You know what I'm saying? Because I would always ask, like, okay, well, what are you trying to do with this? Because I don't want to have the freshest song on your hard drive that nobody ever heard. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to see how much work you put into it and how you want to use my name, right? And so be, oh, that you whack for that. And I was like, well, I wasn't whack enough for you to offer me the opportunity. You know what I mean? So I don't get it. You know what I mean? So let me break into another question, man.
Sure.
You watch a lot of documentaries where, you know, artists are financially strapped. And you would think the business being what it is, that people would be figure it out by now. Mm-hmm. Right. But why do you think artists still struggle financially?
Do you want me to say all artists or black artists? Because I have answers for both. I'll start with all artists. It's the industry is designed for the rich dude and his homies to profit off of your creativity, and they get the lion's share, you get the small share. And the story that's told is that the outlets matter more than the artist, right? So the head of the owner of the radio or now the group that owns the radio station, it used to be an actual individual or family group, right? Now it's a conglomerate. Is tied into the owner of the record label, who's tied into the owner of the magazine, who's tied into the owner of the television network, and now in this case tied into the owner of the streaming service. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And all of them have created an industry where the artist is the last person that genuinely matters. You know what I'm saying? So my answer is rich people playing rich games. You know what I'm saying? And that's really it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now for black artists, it's a whole extra line to that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because the more you attempt to get to the other side of ownership, unless you come in with that bag, that getting to the other side is a whole other conversation. It's a whole other conversation. I don't want to get on that too much because that wasn't the question you entirely asked me, but I feel like the ownership of our creativity is way too small. I mean, I'm not saying nothing slick here. It's just way too small. And the reason is that's the function of the industry, right? To find something that you can decorate and make profitable.
Right.
And then you 2%, 1%, 3%, 5%. The 0.25% to the creator,
Right. Yeah. I just think it's and just kind of looking at how some of the people just aren't as financially savvy. I know they're real quick to take any deal that comes their way, which makes sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I understand like why people want to be so quick to take whatever's coming at them, take whatever bag they feel is coming, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, there's a level of longevity that you want to keep in this biz that I think is vital, that people don't really, especially young artists, they don't see. They just kind of see the here and now and they just kind of go from that, you know what I'm saying? But they don't ever really look at the whole total picture, you know what I'm saying? And I know for me, myself, early on, I was looking at just getting a deal really quick and trying to, make a record and move on. But as I got older, start doing a couple of them things, start getting them Bud Light checks and them VH1 checks, and start making more sense to me. You know what I'm saying? To really look at financial longevity. So I see a lot of young cats now, and they're eager to make money, but they don't really understand the value of it yet. And so it's really, really hard for them to really be financially stable, but they don't really have financial literacy in the first place.
Sure. Well, there's 2 points to that I'd like to make. And one is I had a conversation with a young artist some years back. He was about 19. He was asking me, should I take this deal? Should not take this deal? And I'm like, well, look, I'm not going to tell you. I don't know what stage of your life you're in, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's not fair for me to say, don't take that and don't. I've seen it work multiple ways. I've seen the dude that took the $5,000 or $10,000 deal, and it worked out for him. In the end, the record progressed and that artist progressed. And I've seen the person take the $10,000 deal, and that's the last deal he ever got. So right. I don't really have an answer to that. It's going to be based on how much you work and kind of how the lines break. You know what I'm saying? But what I did say was, how long do you plan to live? Just out of curiosity. Right. It's like, it's a crazy question, right? Right. I don't know, man. Grandfather lived till he was 80. You got to make money from right now all the way till then. Right. Keep that in mind. Like you're if you take a deal that's going to make you comfortable financially for the next 3 months, that's 3 months out of the next 60 years you plan on living. 70 years you plan on living. Right. Every move you make has to be considered. How you have to consider what the next step is and how you're going to progress. And that's a difficult lesson to learn. When you're financially stressed, right? Right. Like we said, it's the transition. We met in 94. I was a teenager, right? We met around 94, 93, right. 94. I was a teenager. Talking again in 2005, man, like I was at a whole different stage. Right. You know what I mean? I'm like, what am I going to do? You know what I'm saying? My daughter was born 2007. That's a whole nother conversation. Somebody says, I'll give you 10 grand. I'm like, dude, 10 grand is like, I don't know, man. It's like diapers and formula at this point. Yeah, for sure. It's not even really cutting the mustard. So, yeah, man, I think that decision, especially if we go back, and a lot of people like to talk down about the older artists who took the bum deals back when rap first started.
Right. There wasn't no other choice.
There wasn't no other options, yo. There were very few other options, and waiting did not work out for everyone. Right. And I think that's the story that needs to be told as well.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of things got to break right, Mike. Like, you know the deal. Like things got to really break.
They got to go your way.
They got to go your way a lot of times, right? And you got to run into a group of people on the business side of things that are adamant about your success.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like even like some of the cats that I've been fortunate enough to kind of help kind of monetize their career, and they had careers in the 80s, and they're still under contract from 85.
Man.
Because they still owe a certain level of money, right? And so, and then, getting it to certain lawyers are like, hey, dude, we got to find a way to get this dude out of his deal so he can get some level of monetization of his talent that was for the world. Like, this dude was the blueprint for artists like myself. And it don't make no sense that I'm making more money than him, and he got a record that's played on the radio every day on the old school channel. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so it's not necessarily fair, and it's not prudent, but looking at the contract, it's like, yo, you had no other choice, bro. It was like, here, we're going to give you this 30 grand up front. We're going to put you on the radio. We're going to put you on MTV. Deal with it. And 30 grand is a grip when you 18 years old. Right. You don't like it. The local car wash is hiring.
Exactly, because those are that's the other option, right?
Right.
So yeah, it's the position that you're in, and for young Black folks, I don't care if you grew up in the suburbs or not. As a black artist, those options there's not a lot of trust funds. How about that?
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? You're not running into a lot. There are some situations that work out like that, but there aren't a lot of there's not a lot of generational wealth being passed down to have you comfortable enough to wait or make those moves. I use the Black Eyed Peas as an example all the time, kind of based on the entire conversation we've had to this point, right? Right. The fan base jumped on them You know what I mean? When they cry. But I'm like, yo, what did y'all want them to do?
Right.
You know, some of y'all was talking crazy. Y'all, so y'all wanted them to just fail by your standards? Nah. They made a left and made bread. So now what? Now you don't have nothing. Now you're upset.
Because you don't have the ownership. They didn't make it because of you. Because you weren't
decide
the reason why they made it.
Exactly. You want to be the decider, but you can't. You can't be that decider. So you know, you got to learn to live with it. So
yeah, man. It just I was watching something, I don't know, documentary or something, and they were talking about all these artists who just, you know, consistently struggled over the years with bad contracts and so on and so. It was the New Edition little mini series they did, and how they just got stuck in bad deal after bad deal. So I just always find it, you know, fascinating. Not that I wasn't a victim of it myself either, but just, you know, that I'm holier than thou. But you would think, you know, I had a chance to get a record deal back when I was in my 20s. So my priorities in my 20s are much different than my priorities at 47.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So that plays a lot into it. But I know Russell Simmons told me when I met him in 2004, I sat down with him and he was like, look, I think you're a phenomenal artist, bro, but I'll never sign you. And I was like, why? And he was like, just because you're too smart. I know you read the contract and you'll come in here with red marks. And he's like, I can find somebody else for that.
Yep.
But you don't need to be on my label. You could be me. You can start your own label. You can do it yourself. You don't need me. You know, and this was right at the turn of the social media internet era. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, you know, this was 2004. So you talking MySpace, I think was popping then. You know what I'm saying? And so, but MySpace, I put together my first European tour through MySpace.
That's how we got ours too. That's Odyssey. Shout out to Odyssey through MySpace. Yep.
You dig? So I think it's a way to monetize that. And I think artists like Odyssey were smart enough to kind of to be in the forefront of that and then continue that and create a hell of a fan base from that.
I think that's unique though. I think artists like yourself, artists like Jay-Z, although, you know, there was a lot of support with Jay-Z. I think that's a unique thing for an artist to have to be able to play both sides. Right.
For sure.
I think some artists are very much, you know, artists. Right. You know what I mean? And it's almost unfair to ask them to do both, man. It's so focused that's what they, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's unique. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's unique.
I think people like Jay-Z, you know, are outliers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not everybody.
I think people like yourself, Odyssey, Jay-Z, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can't. It's. I can't tell you how difficult it is to do both. You know, and I think if I'm honest, I think my artistry suffered because of it.
That was the next thing I was going to say. Your creativity suffers when you have to do both. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I think you go ahead.
And what you consider when you make a record when you're doing both.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? As you're writing that song, you've been playing the business side of this for a while. Like you have to shake off the business and not write in the direction of that when you've been playing both.
Yeah. Like I'd like for album after album, man, I would have to just write and record and see what worked before I can even put together an album. So I do like 40 songs and pick 17 and then see how I can package that up and then market that and then go sell that on the road. Right. Yeah. And so I had to do it in separate phases. I had to do the creative side without thinking about the marketing side of it. And then once I got the songs recorded, which song fit to make this marketing package work to then take on the road to do what it is I do. So yes, it requires a lot of energy. And it's misdirected energy. It's not the energy towards the record or towards the production or the artwork or, you know what I mean? or the manufacturing. So something takes a hit, at least in my perspective. People like Jay-Z's they got enough money and people around them to make it work. It makes more sense to them, but I'm sure Odyssey feels the same way.
Oh, absolutely. I think not to speak too much towards business, but I think that's ultimately why he took a deal, right?
Right.
The deal that now, but the only difference is by the time, and this is something I'm sure you would understand more than anybody, by the time that deal showed up, the conversation was different because of all the work he put in on his own.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that was the conversation there. And a lot of, like, look at Murs. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Murs is an excellent example. At some point, Murs took a deal.
Right.
And then moved on and continued to parlay his own thing. But you know, I think that, again, I think that that's a unique thing. And I think that that's a blessing to be able to work both sides and not suffer so much that you lose your art,
right,
or that your fan base is disconnected. Like, yo, what did he just put out?
Right. Right.
Did he put out a whole record talking about contracts and lingo?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's unique. I think that's a blessing. I also think that the industry itself, though, needs more people and continues to need more people who aren't so focused on being famous and more focused on the business and the support of the art and artists that are putting it out. You know what I mean?
Right. My focus was always to be consistent and being good.
Yes.
You know, and if I became famous from it, great. That wasn't the goal, though. The goal was for it to be good, because I had a conversation with Tretch. I think I was in Stockholm or something at some festival, and I was getting ready for the show, and we were at sound check or whatever. And I was like, man, I hate doing this song. And it was Wanna Be an MC, which is probably my most popular song or whatever. And so he was like, why? And I was like, man, it just, you know, it was, I didn't like it from the beginning, to be honest. It was something I did for the label that they thought was a good idea. And it just, you know, it hit, you know? And so he's like, bro, you think I feel like doing OPP all the time, dog? But OPP gets the check cleared. Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying? He's like, but he said, don't look at it as a nuisance. Look at it as an asset, because you'll always have a song that people will always want to hear 20 years from now. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, they may not want to hear Hip Hop Hooray, but they definitely want to hear OPP for sure. Right. You know what I'm saying? So they may not want, you know, so you could get off your other shit with just so because Wanna Be an MC is on the bill. Right. And so I started looking at it differently that way. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start adding this more and more to my show. Because I used to cringe to have to do that joint. You know what I'm saying? Just because it just wasn't one of my favorite joints. You know, and I think every artist has that one song or those set of songs. They're like, but the people like it, so I'm gonna do it for the people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maintain excellence is that song for me,
for sure.
And that was, you know, that's the first record that came out, so it's like, all right. I mean, you know,
it was the introduction to the game, so people know that's what they know you for.
Yeah, it was hard work, and the B side was Maintain Excellence. So, there was never a point where I do this weird, you know, I don't know, man. I try to stay grounded as a level-headed person, but also have this, you know, that cosmic rapper thing. And I connect songs to moments, right? Like for me, you mentioned OPP, like that takes me back to a specific period in time in my life. Right. And if I have a song, or if I'm blessed to have a song that does that for other people, then I want to present that song. You know what I'm saying? I want that moment.
Right. I had to look at it from that perspective. Like when people hear that song, especially when I do that song in Europe, for people in Europe, that was my introduction to them. Yeah. And so they were like, you know, when that song, they hear that dun 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 dun, they go bananas. I have to respect the fact that I have it good enough. Yeah, I have that privilege to
because a lot of people will never ever have that song.
Ever get that. You don't get that opportunity. So for sure, man. So really quick, bro, I wanted to get into. I'm a sports fan with the truest sense of the word, fanatic. You see the Rams in the background. But I'm a diehard Laker fan. Like, there's nothing more important in sports than the Lakers. And we having a down time right now, so I'm not gonna mention nothing about that. But I do kind of come across your post in regards to sports and sports fans and people's take on sports and so on and so forth, man. First of all, where does that come from? And then two, them shits is hilarious, B.
Well, thank you. I obviously I don't like fans for some reason. I think most people would think that, but no. During the Kobe Bryant era, when Shaq left,
right.
I became much more cognizant of the discussion around the sport,
right?
Than just the sport, right? Like before that, I mean, look, we was around for the Magic and Kareem era, right? Where these men were discussed as the greatest human beings to ever walk the earth. You know what I'm saying? You knew nothing of the negatives that went on in their lives. You knew nothing of any there. It was all positive. And also they were much more accessible. If you lived anywhere near you know what I'm saying, certain, you know, parts of town or whatever.
Right.
They were
most likely you ran into them.
You ran into them, you know what I'm saying? But I started to listen to how manipulative sports media was.
Yes.
And it started to bother me, right? Because I knew, and most people should know, that, they don't really know what they're saying they know. Like they don't really know that, because when they're wrong, they just pivot. Right. For example, just last week, Kyrie Irving was going to sign with the Lakers. It was almost a guarantee in so many people's eyes. Right? Like, just 2 days. Like he's going to take the minimum. This is crazy. You had immediate. I'm not just talking on some blog and meme sites, right? I'm talking on ESPN. They're automatically bashing LeBron and look at him trying to put another super team together. How many stars do you need? It's like, I'm sitting there going, that man's not going to turn down $37 million for $6 million to play in law. He's not going to do that. Right. I knew that before everybody with a brain knew that. Right. But it was fanfare, sensationalism, right? So then I started thinking, why are y'all falling for this so much? You know what I'm saying? And also, why is this discussion always around anything that Black folks is good at? Like, why is it always turned into this clown show? You know what I mean? Like, at some point, it just started to piss me off. You know what I mean? For sure. So then I just start smashing people that believed in it. Like, I'm sick of this. Like, you should know better, and you should see these narratives that are being drawn. And also, the more that these athletes have taken ownership for their communities and themselves, the more they're being beat down. And I don't think that that's disconnected at all. For sure. Like, I don't think that there's any disconnect in that. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, I think that's where it started. It did. It's kind of like we talked about the business and the music side, like seeing both, like how it kind of takes a hit. It did take it. At one point, I had to step back a little bit because it started to take away from my enjoyment of the game. Right. But it's also just it's also in addition to, like, you man, if you're a sports fan, like, you recognize what these. I'm not a Rams fan, right? But what Aaron Donald does, not everybody can just do. For sure. It's not like if you were the same size as him, you could do it. Like, this dude is put in so much work and skill. Like LeBron James, for example, Kevin Durant, all of the players that they're bashing right now. Right. You can't just wake up in the morning 6'9" and be them. Right. You know what I'm saying? So it's also like an appreciate, like where is the appreciation for what we're seeing? Right. I think for me, man, I think around the time when I want to say LeBron won his second ring with the Heat is when I started to feel what you felt, right? Because I had to realize why I disliked him so much. Right. And so I had this conversation with a friend of mine who was a basketball nut. And I was like, here's why I don't like LeBron. And this was 2012 or whatever. And I was like, I don't like LeBron, nothing to do with him personally, because I don't know the man. You know what I'm saying? And as far as I knew back then, he was, he's clean as a whistle. So what I didn't like about LeBron is that somebody who had hit the genetic lottery to be 6'9", 260, can run like a deer and jump like a gazelle, would never take his ass in the post, even when he had somebody small on him. If somebody who played basketball, who grew up watching basketball, that shit used to drive me batshit nuts. And that was where my hate from him started. But then it was the whole King James and Witness and all that type of stuff. That immediately before he had ever proved himself. Yeah, so the media hype used to drive me nuts. And so, but after he won that second ring and his performance in that finals,
I was like, you know what? I'm gonna respect this man. This man out there putting in work. This dude he's exceptional, right? And in them 4 or 5 years he played against Golden State in the finals and lost a couple, his numbers are insane. Absolutely. He was like 35, 9, and 10. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And losing. You know what I'm saying? And so, and so I was like, nah, this kid can play. But then I started I got caught up in the sensationalism of sports fans, right? And then he was also intruding on that Kobe territory.
Exactly.
Kobe was one of those people that I held sacred. You know what I'm saying? I watched that kid grow up in my city. And I watched this kid, even on a regular random ass Tuesday night against the sorry ass Bucks, watch this dude did some of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Right. Yeah, and so and then the GOAT conversation always bothered me.
Yeah, I don't like that
because I don't because there's never a basis of the criteria.
None whatsoever.
Never, if always he got 6 rings, so he's the greatest, right? So it's like that means Russell's rings were shit,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Right. But people forget the 8 years he played when he couldn't get past the first and second round.
Sure,
they omit, so those don't count.
Yeah,
like those. So he's 6 and 8. You know what I'm
really,
saying?
and that's the part. Like 6 and 8 with a big L on 8. Right. Like Magic is 5 and 5.
He's 5 and 4.
5 and 4. Right. But that's 4 finals appearances. Like we're not talking like bow out in the first round out. If we add all of those up, it's a whole other thing, right?
Right. But you got to think before
5 and 12, right?
Before the age thing, he played 12 years. He went to the finals 9 times and won 5
9 times. 9 out of 12 years. 5 won 5 of them joints. So I don't like the GOAT conversation because of how eras are now discussed, as though all the prior eras to the ones that we were able to see or the ones we were nearest to, they were playing against scrubs and they didn't matter. You know what I'm saying? But my conversation about eras is similar to my conversation about hip hop eras. They were creating from nothing, man. Boxing out wasn't even a term. Right. You know what I'm saying? A jump hook wasn't a thing, or the
3-point line wasn't a thing until you were 10.
3-point line didn't exist. But I'm right. The 3-point line didn't exist. You couldn't dunk in a lot of these cases. But there was also like the actual fundamentals of the game were developed by these men.
Right.
So to say, oh, that era doesn't count. It's like, man, they had terms like, loop-de-lie and all that stuff. Those were real legitimate terms because dudes were saying, like, if I do it like this, then some of the things didn't work and some of them did. But I'm talking actual positioning and boxing out, actual closeouts, actual, seals, all of sealing a player in the post. All of these things were being developed during Wilt and Russell's era.
Right.
And they taught these strategies down the line. So you get to a Shaq, and he's benefiting from all of these lessons that were learned on the court. How do you take away from what Will and Russell did when they blueprinted the game?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You can't.
You can't take that. You can't omit them from history because
you can't.
You try to dilute their image or their stake in what they created because that era was just those are all accountants and insurance salesmen.
Right. We all have this belief, man, that it had to happen. Right. Like if Kareem didn't do it, somebody else would have done it. Right. Totally excluding the fact that this greatness happened from this individual and it should be respected. Right. So if Bill Russell didn't do it, somebody else, who else would have done it? How are we guaranteed to have ever had that type of thing happen, or that person, what that person accomplished was just a guaranteed accomplishment no matter what? That's not all the way. That's not true.
Bill Russell played 13 years and got 11 rings and won 11
rings. And listen, we are Lakers fans. So first of all, having this conversation is difficult as is. But just a respect for the athlete, man. Like I said, I'm watching the NFL playoffs. That's like, listen, you can't do what Cooper Kupp does. No. Just waking up in the morning. Whether you could, let's say I don't know, Johnny Manziel or whatever, like somebody who didn't do it, you still can't do that. It's still not easy. Right. So I think we've gotten away from what we had in the 80s, which was a respect for what we were seeing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We didn't like Larry Bird, but we understood, like, yo, what Larry Bird is doing is nice stuff.
He's killing them.
Yeah, like you wouldn't take that away. Now you'll actually take away from what somebody is doing. They're doing it right in front of your face.
They're doing it right now. Like all of a sudden, like there's this talk about, okay, there's Jordan and there's LeBron and then now there's Curry. Like y'all took Larry Bird and Magic and Kobe off the list.
We just threw Larry Bird in the trash. Like, it was like he never played the game.
Like they act like Kobe didn't exist.
Like Kobe wasn't there. Yeah.
Like I struggle with that because I'm like, bro, like the dudes that are somebody now, he was their Jordan. Like how do you exclude him from the list?
And yo, Kobe, what people don't remember, and if you weren't there, you don't know this.
Right.
Kobe and the Lakers were supposed to be dead. It was supposed to be over. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was supposed to be over. Shaq left.
And it was right.
And that was it. We were never supposed to see another ring again. For him to go back and go to 3 different finals, and I don't care what y'all say about trades and Pau Gasol. Listen, that don't guarantee nothing. We've seen alleged better teams. Not
we had Steve Nash and Dwight Howard. You see what that got us?
Yeah, exactly. So, but you know what I'm saying. So that was the other thing, man. Like he was like from the ashes.
Right.
Kobe Bryant was. So that was why Laker fan, man. If you mention Kobe Bryant to a bunch of legitimate real Laker fans, man, like it's a tear because we were supposed to be gone. That was supposed to be the end of the Lakers and his tenacity and of course the whole team's tenacity, front office, etc. But rose from the ashes to become a person that people revered and respected in the end.
Right.
And that's another thing. That's another story of an athlete that should be told in a better light. You know what I mean?
Right. No, indeed,
but it's not,
indeed.
right?
And then unfortunately, he passed away before he could really tell it the way it should have been told.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, I appreciate your time, fam. I'm gonna ask you one more question, man, and let you get on about the rest of your day. So if you had an opportunity to do a dream collaboration, right? That's any producer, any MC, dead or alive, you making an album, what would that production lineup look like? Who would those features look like?
It's a list of producers and list of features.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Dead or alive.
Dead or alive. All right. Yeah. So I'm always gonna put Odyssey and do Westlake on anything. Period. So they would be kind of first out the gate. But as far as of course, Dilla, I would love to have worked with Dilla, Madlib, and there's one more that's coming to mind. Yeah, it would be like Marley Marl, you know what I'm saying, or whatever right. That was whatever was happening around there, and then the LA Posse produced LL's record, correct? Am I tripping off of that?
Yep.
I can't. Yeah, LA Posse record would be excellent. That production lineup. So that would be the producers. As far as the features, AC Alone, Mos Def, Black Thought. Although I'm naming artists that I'm like, man, I got to rap with these dudes. But yeah, of course, them, and Pharoah Monch and Elzhi would be the off the top features.
That'd be dope.
That's just off top. You know what I'm saying?
That'd be dope. Yeah, I think I'd pick Dilla for sure. Pete Rock and Premier just for nostalgia's sake.
Sure.
Probably what's his name? Buck Wild.
Oh, Buck Wild's nice. Yeah.
Diamond D would probably be another one.
Diamond D, definitely.
I would love Dre just for the LA aesthetic.
Yeah.
Features would be similar, man. I would love to do a joint Black Thought, Pharoah Monch. MOP would be somebody I will do a feature with. That would probably be crazy. I probably would have Madlib too. But I think everybody else, man, I think it had to be somebody out of the ordinary, man. I would love to have worked with Curtis Mayfield, or
okay.
You know what I'm saying, or somebody like that,
yeah.
or like a to be in the studio with Isaac Hayes would have been just dope.
Yeah.
Right. Like I had a chance to sit in the studio with George Clinton, man, and them stories were just hilariously brilliant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
His story right there. The story of More Bounce to the Ounce and how that came about is one of the best stories I ever heard. So to give you the quick snapshot of it, Roger was done with his album. They needed one more single. They didn't have a single. And so he was like, yo, won't you use this? And played the drum track to More Bounce Than an Ounce. And he was like, yeah, he hummed the melody, the boom, 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 boom. Said, yeah, just play that on your keyboard, man. You got a hit. And left the studio. What? And so 11 minutes later, you got one of the most sampled songs ever. And it came out of the brain of George Clinton on the fly to help his homie out.
That's ill. That's ill.
And I was crazy. I sat in there, man, mouth to the floor, like, yo, I can't even believe I just heard that first person from George Clinton, yo. And I just left my backpack in the studio that night. And I went back the next day. I seen this dude sitting in there. I was like, that look like George Clinton. And he was like, hey, what's up, young fella? And he started talking, man. He was telling me all these stories and about how he wanted to sue everybody and how he was probably the greatest musical mind of his time. And he was better than James Brown. And I was like, nah, you ain't got no arguments from me. I've heard your records. You know what I'm saying? And so he was definitely a savant, man, ahead of his time, man. But so I would have loved to have done like what's the joint that my man Seinfeld does for the comedians in car while drinking coffee or some shit. Yeah. He'd be one of the dudes I'd get on my episode. Just riding around town with that dude telling stories.
You would never stop driving, man. He would tell stories for hours.
For hours. For hours.
You'd be in Humboldt by the time he was done.
Right. No doubt. But Trek, man.
Hold on. Bro. Last way, I'd add, going outside of the line of hip hop, I'd add Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and Donny Hathaway. Just those two additions.
Forgot about Donny.
I don't know how to record, but yeah, I'd love to have Donny Hathaway on the joint, not just the hook, but like some way of.
Right now, he didn't get enough credit for his production skills.
Not at all.
But yeah. But Trek, man, it's been real, man. I appreciate your time, brother. You keep doing what you do, man. I can't wait to see you again in public, bro, and just chop it up like we used to, man. Back in the day, I've been a hermit for the last 3 years, but one of these days I'm gonna get out, man. I'm gonna see you, bro. I'm gonna chop it up for sure. Yeah, man. Yeah, we definitely got to chop it up, man. Old times and stories from the past as well, man. And I appreciate you inviting me on. Yo, that's love. I apologize for being late, but I appreciate you. No, it's all good, man. I got to get my man Kev in the building too, man.
Rap Sucks Radio, man. We got to get Kev Sakota on.
Or man. I get on your joint, whatever, man. It's been a minute. Kev was integral, man, for a couple of years of my career. I don't know if he really knows that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I leaned on him heavy without trying to make it, be known, but I leaned on him heavy for a couple of years though. So
he's a great dude, man, a mentor and a great dude. And when we do the Rap Sucks Radio podcast, like it's like chopping it up with the homie, y'all, for an hour. You know what I'm saying?
For sure. I bet you guys got some rich stuff, man, to really push out there. But man, it's good hearing from you, bro. Hope all is well, man. And I'll get with you soon, fam.
For sure, man. Peace. Thank you so much, Mike.
In a minute.
Word up.
You are listening to the BU Podcast with Michael Arrington.
That's right. We're back. BU Podcast. Your man, Mike Arrington, man. I want to give a shout out to my man, Trek Life, for falling through. Had a really, really wholesome conversation, man. I think about some of the things we see on social media and how I chuckle, man, at, I try to not really engage with foolishness on social media. I try to make it a point to not do that. It's just really too much energy exerted to things that aren't really that important. I'm kind of at a point in my life to where I don't have anything to prove. So me trying to let you know how smart I am or how invested in something I am is really not advantageous for me at this point in my life. But every now and then, depending on the subject, I might get engaged, man, or I might even just engage just to kind of educate you so you don't sound stupid. But I really kind of do see like this really just contrast between where life was at the beginning of social media. Like I'm talking about MySpace and then even like Facebook in the beginning into where it's at now. And I really believe, man, people are really making social media like their own little pseudo platforms to get their ideologies across. I think we're all guilty of it, myself included. I think the only difference as far as like what I do is I just try to uplift people, man. I try to, I go through daily struggles. I go through, issues and whatnot. And I just kind of put it out there because I know if I'm going through it, it's probably somebody else going through it. So I put it out there to help people get through it, or at least give them some context as to what it is they're going through. But rarely do I put out political views or social justice views. I think you know me, you kind of know where I stand on things. But I'm not one to debate or grandstand the things that I do know. I think there's room for everybody to learn from everybody, but social media is kind of like, you get into some of these comment sections sometimes, and it's like the pond scum of society, and it gets a little much. So I said that to say that just be mindful of the energy you put out there, man, even social media wise or whatnot. And then also, man, for those youngsters that are on social media, kind of just posting their business, man, just know that whatever you put on social media, man, it's written in pen. It's not written in pencil. So somebody will find it if it's too foolish for you. Eventually you're going to want somebody to give you a job. So be mindful of what you put out there. It may come back to haunt you, especially if you out there kind of putting out reckless stuff. Even the lives and the Snapchats, like somebody will find it, screenshot it, do something, man. It happens every time. So just be careful, be mindful. It's not that serious, man. People are not what they post. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have this great life. We all struggle from day to day, but people only put the good stuff there, so just be mindful of that, man. Nobody's perfect. It's nothing new under the sun, but take care of each other, man. Love each other, man. And if you don't, stay away from each other. Plain and simple. It's really that easy. It's your man, Mike Arrington, BU Podcast. Till next time, man. Peace.
You are listening to the BU Podcast with Michael Arrington.